Reports have been emerging about a retirement problem among Democrats, notably CNN saying quite literally that Democrats have a retirement problem. 19 Democrats so far have retired. And truth be told, 11 Republicans have as well. So maybe it's not indicative of anything. It could just be there are more Democrats in Congress than Republicans. Or maybe it's, well, Democrats know there is going to be a major catastrophe coming in the next year. If they remain, they will be relegated to the backbench as Republicans take over in a red tsunami, and Americans say enough with the failed economic policy. Right now, new numbers have come in on inflation, and it's bad. It's worse than it's been in nearly 4 decades. And you think it's bad now. Wait until next year, and everyone feels this way. I say everybody, but I mean, for the most part, everybody. For some reason, Democrats still, to a certain degree, believe the economy is good. And it's because they're only choosing to read the fake news. What if I were to tell you that there's tons of articles coming out right now in the past few days saying the economy is better than ever? At the same time, there are several articles coming out, like even the New York Times, saying the economy is really bad. Now, if you watch a show like this, I will show you both articles. I'll show you what the Democrats are saying. I'll show you both competing articles from the same outlets, and then you figure it out. I think it's fair to say the economy is bad. Independent voters and Republicans agree. Democrats, for some reason, don't. And I think it's because they're getting selective news. It's because they're watching the likes of CNN or MSNBC, and they're being led astray by grifters, as it were, who just want to tell them what they want to hear. I'll put it this way. If you watch this show or other shows like it, I will show you all the articles. When you watch them, they only show you the ones that make you feel good. Here we go from the Wall Street Journal. Voters pessimistic about economy, Biden's leadership, Wall Street Journal poll finds. That's how voters feel. And here's the big story. Inflation soars nearly to nearly 40-year high. Consumer prices exploded. But what do we get from the Hill? Biden is delivering the fastest economic recovery in history. Why hasn't anyone noticed? Because the economy is getting worse. Inflation is getting worse. We have more job openings now than we did last month or the month before. Or how about we counter it with this from the Democrats? Welcome to the Biden boom, showing Joe Biden bringing in 5.8 million new jobs. You see how the game is played? They destroy the economy with COVID lockdowns. People know this. They know their business has been destroyed, and then they come out and say, everything we're doing is working and jobs are coming back. You don't get to steal $20 from me. Then come back and give me $10 and say, I just made you $10. I'm like, dude, you stole the $20 from me in the first place. This spells disaster for the Democrats in 2022, but far be it from me to make a prediction about what might happen. I honestly don't know. I think there's actually good reason the Democrats could still win in 2022. We look back at 2020 and we saw how well Republicans did in the House elections, but they still ended up losing control, or I should say they ended up not maintaining control. For a lot of reasons. Ultimately, the Senate splits 50-50. Tiebreaker goes to the Democrats. They did make gains in the House, but not nearly enough. There were surprising things, like down in southern Texas, Latino voters flipped Republican. In Miami, an urban Democrat stronghold that no one thought would turn Republican actually turned Republican. And just recently in Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, we saw Democrats get crushed. They know what's coming because we know what's happening. You cannot lie when people are faced with the prices at the grocery store. You can tell everyone in the world, in the country, vote for us because the economy is better than ever. And then they go to the grocery store and they're like, why is a box of cereal $7? I got to pay for my kids' food and I can't. And they start to wonder about what happened. Now, truth be told, COVID plays a role in this, of course. Donald Trump is not a saint. He did a good job, though, and Joe Biden is not doing a good job, and most people seem to think that. Biden's approval on economic issues is in the gutter, in the mid to high 30%, because most people are like, dude, you're screwing this up. Even voters who supported Joe Biden now regret it. Well, let's read what's going on and get a good preview of what's to come in 2022. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member, help support our journalism. We got this story on inflation from Michael Robinson. And as a member, you'll get access to exclusive segments from the Timcast IRL podcast, as well as many other shows. And your membership supports all of the journalism we're doing. We're not driven by ad clicks. We have ads, but we're not driven by that. We're not driven by trying to chase a narrative or grift. We're driven by doing good reporting on fundamental issues that are important for your life. That's why we do the membership model. Because whether someone likes a story or not, we write what we think is important. Maybe someone doesn't read it. Either way, a membership helps everything function. If you like my work, go to timcast.com and support us. But don't forget to like this video right now, subscribe to this channel, take the URL from up top, share it wherever you can. That is the most powerful thing you can do, better than any membership or anything, allowing us to compete with the likes of CNN and MSNBC, ABC, Fox News, etc., so we can challenge the establishment narratives. Here's the story from Timcast. Timcast reports consumer prices exploded to levels that have not been seen in nearly 4 decades in November, when Americans paid more for groceries, cars, and gasoline, among many other products. The consumer price index rose 6.8% in November compared to a year ago, according to a new Labor Department report released Friday. The report marked the fastest increase since June 1982, when inflation hit 7.1%. The consumer price index, which measures a bevy of goods ranging from gas to groceries and rent, jumped 0.8% in the 1-month period from October. Let me simplify this for everybody. This basically means if you want to buy bacon, more expensive. You want to get gas for your car, more expensive. You want to buy bread, milk, eggs, more expensive. Let me break it down even further and give you the nitty gritty. If you have been saving money, if you're somebody who's been somewhat responsible and tried to put away, they are stripping away your savings. We often hear about regular Americans are fighting every day, living paycheck to paycheck. I get my paycheck, I spend it all, I'm out of money. Now, if you're doing that, life's rough. I've been there. But what if you say, I'm going to save a little bit of this so I can put a down payment on a house, get out of this rental situation, and finally build equity and escape the lower class. They pump out money. They print it like crazy. They are extracting your savings. And now you've been saving, but all of a sudden, the down payment is now $5,000 more. Let's say you've been saving up to buy a tablet because you need it for school or something. $500, that's the cost. So you finally saved up $400, but then, oops, in only a few months' time, that tablet's now $650. And you finally reach that $500 and you're like, I saved up all this money, but now I still can't afford it. This is what they're doing. Regular Americans can see it. Take a look at from CNBC, December 8th. There are 11 million open jobs as the quitting spree continues. It's still a very tight labor market. We're watching for a variety of reasons. Everything kind of fall apart around us. Now, I think it's fair to say Americans are a bit gluttonous for a lot of reasons. And I can criticize Americans for eating too much. I think we all can. We have an obesity problem. But I can also say this is not about people who are irresponsible and have the disposable income or are just buying too much of the wrong thing. It's about you trying to raise a family. It's about you trying to put food on the table for your kids, because that's what everyone said to me. They said, Tim, I'm worried about speaking up about these political issues because I don't want to lose my job and risk my children eating food. And my response has always been, look around. Look at what has become of our country under Joe Biden and the last year under Trump, with a lot of Democrat influence, namely in the governorships in these blue cities. The economy is being gutted and bashed. Now, I think to be fair, in 2019, Donald Trump was doing very well in terms of the economy. People were doing better than ever. It wasn't just that people were getting more money. It's that they were able to buy more things. Buying power is a better metric than anything, really. Wages, inflation, buying power. How much can you buy for 1 hour of your labor means more to me than wages or inflation. But when you combine these factors, what do you get? Wages aren't going up, but inflation has. Here's an easy way to put it. If over the past year, you have not gotten a 7% raise from your job, you have lost money. Your wages have decreased. And part of this is because of Biden's policies, a variety of reasons. The Washington Post reports 4.2 million Americans quit their jobs in October as workers continue to search for better opportunities. So there's 11 million openings, 4.2 million people quit. What's happening is that people aren't making enough money in many areas. Some people are taking an opportunity to try and find better work. But you have 4.2 million people 11 million open jobs. That doesn't mean a person can just take a job. There's a shortage of certain specialties. And all of this spells very serious problems. The Wall Street Journal comes out and says it. Voters pessimistic about economy, Biden's leadership, Wall Street Journal poll finds. Voters are heading into the midterm election year in a sour mood, pessimistic about the economy and short on confidence in the leadership of President Biden and his party on the issues that concern them the most. A new Wall Street Journal poll finds. The survey reveals a set of danger signs for the Democratic Party as it prepares to defend narrow majorities in the House and Senate. Voters by a large margin see economic and fiscal issues, including inflation, as the top priorities for Washington, and they view the GOP as better able to handle them. That is the mic drop moment. Democrats know what's coming. And maybe this is why almost twice as many Democrats have retired, in the past few months or are planning to. And it's because they know regular people are finally saying, dude, just let the Republicans in. I don't think the Republicans are going to solve your problems, my friends. I think Mitch McConnell is just going to waste your time. And it's sad, really, that you get people who finally say, I have had it with the Democratic failed policy. I'm going to vote Republican this time. A Republican, Mitch McConnell, is sitting there he's sitting right there going, we're not going to do anything. We're going to obstruct and we have no agenda. And that's what you're voting for. Yeah, the Republican Party is trash. There's a handful of people who are good. But Matt Gaetz assures us, he says, we are not going to sit back and just hold hands. When the Republicans win, they're going to start making moves. I'm sorry. I think Matt Gaetz might try, but I think Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy and the Republican establishment are going to laugh all the way to the obstructing, not of Democrats, but of the populist Republicans. Wall Street Journal says, the silver lining for Democrats is that the party's initiatives in Congress, the recently enacted bipartisan infrastructure bill and a proposed set of climate and social spending programs, have the potential to draw additional support from voters who are undecided on their 2022 choice, the poll found. Democrats are also viewed as best able to control the COVID-19 pandemic, cut healthcare prices, and improve education. Truth be told, people don't like Republicans. Republican support is way down. But the interesting thing is, over the past couple of months, support for Democrats has been going down. Let me rephrase. Support for Republicans is low, but in the past few months, support for Democrats has been declining, and I should say approval. And approval of Republicans has actually been going up. That will be interesting. We'll see how that plays out. The Hill reports almost half in new poll expect economy to get worse in next year. That right there says to me, it is going to be a red tsunami. Look, culture war issues, I think, matter to me. And I think that's what I got wrong to a great degree in the past last year and in 2018. Now, I wasn't entirely wrong about 2020. The Republicans did tremendously well across the board in the House, but not enough to win. In 2018, I was really wrong because I believed cultural issues would play a bigger role. It's the economy, stupid. And maybe that's the lesson I should learn. Now, I'm not going to be stupid enough to make a prediction on what I think is going to happen. I certainly think indicators as of right now predict Republicans could potentially do well. I say could potentially. And I say that because the left likes to take statements that are out of context and then use that as a way to try and stop people from actually getting the truth or getting a breakdown of what's really going on. Notably, they'll take me saying something like, these indicators suggest we're going to see a red wave in 20. You get where I'm going. And the reason I stop there is I'm not saying it's a guarantee we're going to see a red wave. Some people think so. I'm saying current indicators suggest one. But we'll see. A year is an eternity in politics. From CNBC, public view on Biden's handling of COVID and the economy takes another hit, CNBC survey shows. So now we have the Wall Street Journal and CNBC basically saying, people are souring on Joe Biden. They do not believe he is doing the job right, and this will reflect poorly on Democrats. Dude, get with the program. From the Washington Post, Biden approval hits new low as economic discontent rises post ABC poll finds. This is from November. We didn't even have the latest numbers in job creation. Jobs filled was like 200,000, sluggish, abysmal. Inflation hitting a nearly 4-decade high. And even last month, we were hearing the same thing. So what do we get? You saw me cover this story the past 2 days, and I'm going to bring it up again because this is how the dirty game is played. White House working behind the scenes with media to get positive coverage. That's right. For 3 days in a row, I will bring this up because you need to understand what this means. The Biden administration knows things are bad. They know they're doing a bad job, So they're just trying to game the system with their allies in the media. They're lying to you. Let me show you the proof. Take a look at this tweet. Showed it earlier. Welcome to the Biden boom, saith the Democrats. Jobs created in the first 10 months of presidency. Under Biden, the economy has outperformed the past 4 Republican presidents' job growth numbers. What they're not pointing out is that Democratic governors last year destroyed the economy with hard lockdowns. I think 100,000 businesses shuttered. And then when they started releasing the lockdowns, people came back to work and Biden took credit for it. It's amazing, isn't it? Now, we can criticize George W. Bush, George H.W., or whatever, but I love this. Where's Bill Clinton? They just skipped Bill Clinton. This is the amazing thing. Where's Obama? Really? It shows Biden. It shows Trump. It skips Obama. It skips Bill Clinton and just shows George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, and then Ronald Reagan. Really amazing how they lie like that. I love it. Where's Obama? Where's Bill Clinton? Bill Clinton, I believe he presided over the largest economic expansion of the time. Oh, can't include that, can you? Because it would make this chart look different. It look very different. Probably would make Trump look really good, actually, especially with Obama. But you ready for this? You ready for the play by Democrats and the results? You got it, baby. The Hill. Biden is delivering the fastest economic recovery in history. Why hasn't anyone noticed? You see, this is why when you go to Christmas or you're at Thanksgiving, people say, it is not true. The economy is doing great. Republicans are just lying because they read this stuff because they don't read all of it. Now, I'll tell you this. You decide. How's the economy been for you? Yeah, you probably realize not doing too great. Here's Newsweek. Joe Biden has turned the economy around, but Americans remain skeptical. No, he didn't turn the economy around. It's worse than ever. That's why Americans remain skeptical. Fox News. CNBC's Jim Cramer gushes over economy as, quote, strongest I have ever seen, a marvel to behold. This guy is out of his mind. But to be fair, I agreed with him when in 2019 he said, like or hate Trump, these are the best numbers of our lives. You mean to tell me that you're saying when we were having a roaring economy in 2019 and people were making more money than they'd ever seen, many people, and that businesses were starting to implement 4-day work weeks and parental leave and benefits, that Joe Biden, with a nearly 7% inflation rate, is doing better? No, it's because Jim Cramer is an insane crackpot. He's lost his mind. Here's an example. Cramer, U.S. government should make COVID vaccine mandatory. Bring in the military. He says the military should help administer the program. This dude has completely lost the plot. All right. Now, what do you do? What do you do when you can't just lie to people because they're going to the grocery store? You see, they've tried putting out story after story, outright saying the economy is doing well. Please don't believe the lies. And then people believe it and they say, I read in the paper today that the economy is doing great. Then they went to the grocery store and they were like, there's no chicken, there's no beef, and the prices are 20% higher. So what do? You gotta love it from The Intercept. November 10th, inflation is good for you. Don't panic over milk prices. Inflation is bad for the 1%, but helps out almost everyone else. This is evil. It's so insanely evil. I don't even know what to say. John Schwartz at The Intercept is an evil man. I know what inflation means for the 1%, my friends. I know what it means when I have personally hard assets and the value has skyrocketed, but food is getting more expensive and you can't buy it. These people are disgustingly evil. And this is what really, really infuriates me. That when people are beaten down and lied to and manipulated, you get scumbags like this to come out and tell you this. Let me make it very simple for you. I own property. My property value has only gone up. But for somebody who's working paycheck to paycheck, who's making $12 an hour, they're not getting wage increases, but the cost of food is going up more than they're getting in raises, if they get one. You live paycheck to paycheck. You can barely afford your rent. You can barely afford your health care. Meanwhile, the top 1% are holding on to hard assets that are accruing in value. Inflation is not bad for them. They simply say, I've got millions of hard liquid US dollars. What do I do with it? They'll buy a painting. They'll buy a car. They'll buy property. I've got wealthy people. They say to me, you know what they're doing? They're taking their Teslas and they bought them a few months ago. They're selling them now and buying again. Because they don't live, the 1% doesn't live the way regular working class Americans do. Inflation is gutting them. It is destroying their savings. It is beating them down. And what we need is populism, not left or right, not one or the other, either. I don't care. What we need is a movement for the people. Wealthy people are ripping you off, not just plainly the rich. It is the establishment elites that are printing money, setting ridiculous policies. They're shutting down American energy independence. And here's what happens. You're making $12-15 an hour. Maybe you're working at a Starbucks or a mall food restaurant, and you're not getting a raise. The prices are going up. Here's what happens. You go to your boss and you say, look, man, I got kids. The cost of cereal went up 20%. General Mills announced that. I need a raise. And the guy says, I can't give you a 20% raise, dude. Look, we can give you maybe $1 an hour on top of your $15. We'll put you to 16. But we're going to have to raise prices because the cost of chicken has gone up. The cost of beef has gone up. But beef is through the roof. All of this is getting more expensive, and it's already hard enough on us to raise our prices because it's affecting everyone else. Inflation is not bad for the 1%. I mean, inflation's bad for everybody, but the 1% can snap their fingers and find it out. More importantly, I will tell you this. 1%ers, wealthy elites, have investments that accrue greater than 1%. They buy cryptocurrencies. They're through the roof. They buy stocks. They're doing all right. But you, as a regular working class person, have to bear the brunt of the rising prices. And The Intercept, seeking to aid the Democratic establishment and the neocons and the neolibs, will lie and spit in your face with despicable trash like this. The top story on the New York Times website this morning is about inflation, and it's scary. The Washington Post led with a similar alarm. Television, which follows the lead of the Times, and the Post as surely as death follows life, will now produce many more peculiar segments. Whenever the corporate media moves en masse, blah, blah, blah. What's happening is this. The inflation freakout is about class conflict. In fact, it may be the fundamental class conflict that between creditors and debtors, a fight that's been going on since the foundation of the United States. That's because inflation is often good for most of us, but it's terrible for the kinds of people who own corporate news outlets or, say, founded coal firms. And a panic about inflation usually creates the conditions to weaken the power of working people. Today's stories were generated by the release of inflation numbers for October, yada, yada, yada. You'll notice at both the Times and the Post, we get it. So why has inflation seized the imagination of the corporate press? It's simple. First, inflation lessens the real value of debt. In 2020, American households had around $14.5 trillion. Now, this is true, but this is good for rich people, not poor people. So let me explain. I'll overly simplify everything to try and help you understand. Many of you probably already understand. I'm saying this specifically people who don't know basic economics. And I'm not saying that disparagingly. I'm saying maybe you don't, follow the stuff. Let's say for every hour you work, you earn 1 apple. That means your 1 hour is the equivalent of 1 apple. Inflation means that the next time you go into work, 1 hour will not get you an apple. You'll have to work 2 hours to get that 1 apple. That's inflation. Now, if I owe you an apple, I can now say I have to work for 1 hour, but I'm probably making things too complicated. To put it simply, if the value of the dollar goes down due to inflation, that means your debt is worth less as well. And if you are getting a raise because of inflation, that means your debt is being lessened. But that's not a problem for the wealthy elites. They revel in it. They exploit it. If you are someone like Donald Trump, and your liabilities are about $500 million and your assets are like $2.7 billion, your assets will go up and your liabilities will stay the same. Your debt doesn't increase just because the economy does bad, but the value of your hard assets does. So let's put it this way. A wealthy person buys a home for $200,000. They take out a mortgage. They borrow $200,000 from the bank. They then sit back and say, please, 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 inflation. Then what happens is the house is now worth $300,000, but they still only owe $200,000. Then along comes the poor schmuck, a working class Joe who's trying to get out of a renter situation in poverty, wants to buy his first house. He's been trying to save up to buy that house, and it's very difficult living a paycheck to paycheck. But now the value of the house is $300,000. That's inflation. So what does he do? I guess I have to take out a loan. He takes out a loan from the bank to buy that $300,000 house, and the wealthy person pays off their $200,000 loan, puts the $100,000 in their pocket, and doesn't think twice. Rich people are not affected by price increases this way. This is such scumbaggery, man. There are people who are going to go out right now and say, I can't buy milk. And all of the rich people are going to be like, oh, I don't care. The price increase on milk to someone in the 1% is completely out of sight, out of mind. And I'll tell you this, and I mean this not to be a braggart. I mean it to tell you from experience. When I go to the grocery store, I can't tell you how much a gallon of milk costs. I do not look at that price and check my budget. We go in, we buy supplies for the office, I buy food for myself, and I'll tell you what happens at the end. I go to the checkout line and I'm like, wow, everything's more expensive, but I don't know the cost of a single gallon of milk, not off the top of my head. Maybe many of you don't. But I'm trying to tell you, man, I've been working in this industry for a long time. I have been rather successful. And I will tell you, same as Steve Bannon will, the rich people are screwing you over and ripping you off. Not every single rich person is. There are certainly people who will tell you they're ripping you off, and the policies of the Democrats and the elites are doing so. And they'll lie to you. And they will tell you inflation is good for you. But when your savings are gone, because I'll tell you this, if your debt goes down because the value of the dollar is going down, that means your saving goes along with it. And if you don't have $1 million in cash to invest in a large swath of property, which will go up in value, you are losing the value of your hard-earned savings. The New York Times will at least come out and say it. COVID malaise. Why do Americans say the economy is in rough shape? Because it is. And at least we'll get that from the New York Times. Real Clear Politics shows us what's up. President Biden job approval on the economy. 38.5% in the aggregate, 55.8% disapproval. Underwater by over 17 points. The people who believe the economy is doing well or approve of it, these are zealots. They're zealots or they're hit on the take. Now, I don't know, man. I don't know if the Republicans will do anything for you. We can sit here and claim it's going to be a red tsunami for Republicans, but will it really matter? Axios reports. McConnell, no legislative agenda for 2022 midterms. That's right. They're going to be running on Democrat bad. I can't take it. I think Mitch McConnell's awful. He does a terrible job. Appointing judges throughout the Trump administration, sure. But it's not enough. And I think for the most part, yeah, maybe good. You know, it's better than nothing. I'm not a big fan of how necessarily these judges will all be ruling completely, but if they're opposed to the establishment left and the cult ideology of wokeism, it's better than nothing. But what do we need? We need fierce, populist, independent individuals. We need free staters. You know what's going on in New Hampshire? Libertarians are running as Republicans and they're winning, and they're repealing these garbage laws. They're making the state better. They're making people more free. This is what we need. We need all of you to go out in the primary and tell people like McConnell, it's time to go home. It's time to retire. Nancy Pelosi's retiring. That's the rumor. We'll see if it happens. Mitch McConnell should absolutely do the same thing. Lindsey Graham should do the same thing. And I got to tell you, I don't care if it means the Democrats retain power, because having Republicans who do nothing is almost as bad as having Democrats who want to burn the place to the ground. If it means that it'll take another 2 years to turn things around, then these Republicans should absolutely retire. New Republicans who are more independent, populist, and libertarian-minded should run in their stead. And even if they lose, we will be better off, because doing nothing is almost as bad as what the Democrats want to do. They want to say, on the night of November 16th, McConnell met with donors, lobbyists, and a group of Republican senators at a private function. A donor asked a question that could only be answered by McConnell. According to a source in the room, the donor said something to the effect of, we all know what's wrong with the Democrats, but what are we going to do? What are we going to be running on to help us win? McConnell's response was something to the effect of, with all respect, that's not what we're doing, the source said. McConnell has long held the view that putting out an agenda ahead of midterm elections is a mistake, at least for Senate Republicans, sources told Axios. He believes his view has been vindicated by recent history. McConnell points in particular to when he led Republicans to win back the Senate in 2014 without proposing an agenda. Some donors and operatives point to a different memory, the contract with America. House Republicans released a governing action plan before the 1994 midterm elections, and their party won back unified control of Congress for the first time in nearly 50 years. The current House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, is a contract with America guy. Here's what we need. A promise to Americans. Regular working Americans, the little guy. The people who oppose the 1%. I don't care if you're Occupy Wall Street, Bernie Sanders, Trump, whatever. Stop. I got to tell these leftists, man, yo, you're being ripped off by the wealthy elites. You want to know as much about the Epstein trial as I do. You want to see Julian Assange freed. The neolibs are the ones screwing everything up, and their allies, the neocons. Trump is an anti-establishment populist who is wreaking havoc for them. You don't got to like the guy. I will give you that one. I am not a big Trump supporter, but I did support him in 2020 for the obvious reason. I'm not going to vote in the establishment Democrats again. And Donald Trump had some good policy positions. But you see, too many people were wrapped up in Orange Man bad, and Trump is a fascist. And for that, they handed the keys back to the establishment trash party that is going to burn this place to the ground and destroy your lives. We need a populist, unified effort. And I'll tell you this, if Julian Assange, Epstein, and the economy, and namely number one, the economy, can bring us together and we can support something, yo, let's get it done. We all agree on that, right? I don't know, man. I don't see if that being something that could happen. Personally, there are too many on the left that want to see Democrats win. Leftists and the establishment. And I'll tell you this, I don't like the Republicans at all. But I would rather have them over nothing. And some people say, well, at least obstructing is better than the Democrats. But I'm like, dude, another 2 years of nothing getting done and then them handing the keys back to the Democrats to continue what's going on. I'm not here for that. But we'll see what happens. It's plain to see right now how things are going in the economy. It's time for people to wake up. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Come hang out live, and we will see you all there.